Today I'll be doing an oil change on my 2005 Honda Pilot. For this I'm using a torque wrench, a regular socket with a 17mm socket attachment. I've got 4.73 liters of Mobil 15W20 synthetic, a Fram ultra synthetic filter, which is the only Fram filter I'd buy, some gloves, a new drain plug, a funnel, some shop towels, and an oil pan. The recommended change interval is every 3,000 miles, or 5,000 kilometers, or 3 months, whatever comes first. Now, because I have a sloped driveway, I'm going to be using some wooden ramps that I built to keep my vehicle level. The first thing we're going to do is remove the oil filler cap from the top end of the engine. With the oil pan in place on the ground, I'm going to identify the oil drain plug, and you can see they have stamped engine oil right onto the engine's oil pan. We're now going to use the 17mm socket and ratchet to remove the oil drain plug. Due to the positioning of this oil drain plug, it is difficult to remove without getting any oil on your hands. So there it is. You're going to want to keep in mind that when you remove the oil drain plug, the oil actually shoots out pretty far. So just be cognizant of that so you don't get it on the driveway or wherever you're doing your work. I'm going to shift the oil pan over towards the passenger side so that I can remove the oil filter. Now, the oil filter is just located on the very passenger side of the engine, and you may need a special tool for this. I find I can usually remove them by hand. And again, be careful, it will leak some oil because it's not a straight vertical, it is on a slight angle. And that is going to cause some oil to come out when you loosen it. And just drain all the remaining oil from the filter into your oil catch pan. It may depend on where you live, but for me, I can return the oil filter to the same recycling depot that I can return the used oil and other fluids. Now, while everything's draining, you can go prepare the oil filter for installation. Now, like I said, I only use the Fram Ultra Synthetic for the most part. The other Fram filters I find are slightly lower quality, and there's lots of videos online that can show you the interior of the different oil filters. The model number on this Fram filter is an XG7317 filter. Now, before installation, you do need to put a small amount of oil into the filter to lubricate the filter gasket. Try not to spill, as I clearly did. Then take a shop towel and just make sure that the actual rubber gasket has oil on it prior to installing the filter into the filter housing. You also want to make sure there's no gasket material on the filter housing, so I just take the shop rag and give it a good wipe down to make sure it's clean and free of any debris. After that's complete, all you have to do is screw the filter onto the filter housing, and essentially you're going to screw this until the rubber makes contact with the engine, and then in accordance with the Fram filter directions, you can do one more full turn once you have contact made. I find one full turn, once it makes contact, will get it snug, but it won't be too tight that you couldn't turn further, but one turn is all you need. And just like the oil filter, I usually take a towel and wipe up all the oil drips that have accumulated while I was doing the other work prior to installing the drain plug. And as mentioned, I did buy a new drain plug, which I don't normally do, but it was only $5, so I figured I'd throw a new one on. Once I have the drain plug in finger tight, I'm going to use the torque wrench, and the torque spec on the engine oil drain plug is 29 foot-pounds. And once the drain plug's fully installed, I'm just going to take the towel one more time and wipe up around the plug to ensure that if there is a leak, I'll see it right away, and I'll be able to retighten the drain plug. Now, I definitely advise using a funnel of some sort. I found the blue one and it's up sitting down pretty low, so I switched over to this black one. I typically use Mobil 1 synthetic oil on my vehicles. Not that I'm a big oil snob or anything. I usually just wait for it to go on sale, which it usually does once a month, and then I snap it up when it's on a half price sale. After pouring approximately 4 liters of the 5W20 oil into the engine, I usually check the dipstick and then start adding from there. Generally speaking, I find the 4.4 liter jug of Mobil 1 that they sometimes sell is not quite enough for the Honda Pilot, but the 4.73 liters is about exactly what you want, while the 5 liter is just a little bit too much. So you can see on the dipstick it's just a little bit over the full line, but once I start the engine and cycle the oil through the filter, that will go down. So remove the funnel, put on the fill cap, and start the vehicle's engine. And it's going to bring the RPMs up to about 2,000 and hold it there for 15 to 20 seconds, just to get all the oil filtered and moving through the engine and oil filter. Now, one thing to note, when I checked the engine oil a few seconds ago, it did look somewhat dirty from just sitting in the oil pan. After turning the vehicle on and then rechecking the oil, you're going to see that the engine oil is actually pretty clean now. So obviously the oil filter did a good job at getting out some of the initial contamination from some residual contamination that was in the oil prior to starting the vehicle. And like I said, normally you have to put in about 300 or 400 milliliters more after starting the vehicle, just because it has to fill up the oil filter. So you can see that it's full now, and like I said, the oil does now look cleaner, that it had an opportunity to flow through the filter. So I'll just remove the funnel, reinstall the engine oil cap, and give a quick wipe up, because I am pretty messy and I do spill things all over the place. Now you could do an oil change on the Honda Pilot in approximately 30 minutes if you have all the tools for it. The price that I had to pay for all the supplies was $40 Canadian for the 5W20 oil, $15 for the filter, and $5 for the new oil drain plug. And that gives a total of approximately $60. I find that generally speaking, if you take it to a dealership and have them do the oil change, it's going to cost you about $80. So your savings should be in the neighborhood of $20, depending on what kind of oil and oil filter you get and where you take your vehicle for an oil change. So definitely the savings on doing an oil change are not as significant as other services that you could probably do yourself, such as the differential. An added benefit of taking it to a dealership for the oil change is that they also usually do an inspection of your vehicle, and they may come back with other suggestions on things that you can do some repairs on or have them repair in the future. The big reason that I like doing the oil change myself is because I get to select the type of oil and I get to select the type of filter that I use in the vehicle. And for me, that's worth the extra effort of doing the oil change yourself and having to deal with the oil and get rid of it. It's also good for people to learn how to do the oil change and build confidence for doing other work on their vehicle. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.